Just like you had recently, like
Peace,
a
Mo.
couple of
Sorry
years
for the
ago, you had a case
interruption.
in
We just
Hollywood,
had to go back live technical.
somewhere,
All right.
thousands and thousands of people drowned and all this other stuff happened, but that's also a modern day separation.
Pardon.
So natural disasters are always going to cause things like that to occur. But we know that law governs all events, so there's a reason for any type of natural disaster. So there's a spiritual significant reason why the Atlantic Ocean was actually brought about that caused the separation of the East or West, caused North, South, Central America and the adjoining islands, what we call the Atlantis Islands, the Lost Islands of Atlantis. So we know when we say a natural disaster, that just means it was divine. It was caused by God. But if God caused something to occur, then that's dealing with cause and effect. So God just don't say, I just want an earthquake to go down, I want this to go down. It's dealing with a mixture of a polarity or a vibratory rate is off, which causes what we call a natural disaster. So it's only natural because something's off, which causes the event or the effect, cause and effect. And that's where more science comes in at, because we have to understand what caused, because when we say natural disaster, again, we can say, yeah, God caused this to be, but we got to still remember that man and God is one. So that means we caused the Atlantic Ocean.
Absolutely.
We caused the separation.
Absolutely.
We don't want to separate ourselves from that thought pattern, because then we become subordinate to whatever occurred, and we'll never reverse what occurred if we keep looking at things from a third party perspective. Like if we got to get to understanding the cause and effect. What caused this? And once we understand the cause, then we can correct the cause. That's the job of man in the flesh, period. To understand what caused the flesh, what caused man, what caused woman, what caused earth. You can call these natural disasters, but they're frail. There wasn't meant to be.
No.
Life as we know it was not meant to be.
No.
That's an effect of something else that occurred. Science, we have to get into what occurred. What caused this? Earth wasn't always Earth. It's a planet. It's a plane of manifest. But something caused the manifest. We don't want to keep holding God responsible for everything, because we are God. We have to take responsibility for the fall. In order to do that means we have to understand the fall and reverse what got us here in the first place. That's what the Quran and the Moorish Science Temple really is trying to teach us. It's trying to decode what occurred that was written in scriptures, written through religious texts. We're trying to decipher that information so that we can understand the fall. This is why the Bible is considered the greatest story ever told. It is really not a trick book, as people have been told. Even in paths of consciousness, we stray away from the Bible and other religious information because we've been told that's what tricked us or that's what enslaved us. But really, it's your ticket out of here. It's just how you go interpret it determines what you get out of it. It rules the world. We go back to the Book of Eli again, the movie. The Book of Eli, it explains it very well. And when you listen to the European guy that was the one in, running the show on slave and everything, he told his peoples, he says, he who holds this book controls the world. But it's not holding the book. It wasn't the physical possession of the book. That's not the message. The movie portrayed it that way. But it's really he who understands the book.
That's right.
Once you understand the book, then they use it for manipulation. That's what's been done. But it's not the book itself that enslaved us. And we're running from something that really can save us if we really understand it.
Arise. All praise due to Allah, honor to Noble Drew Ali, and no honor to Grand Sheikhs, and all things that pertain to Islam. would it be safe then to say that based on just the last few statements that were made, would it be safe to say that the European nation is doing everything in their power because we hold the keys to
Civilization.
civilization? Would it be safe to say that they're doing everything in their power, not related to the court and all of that, but to keep us from ever learning exactly who we are, exactly what those keys are? As long as they can keep us chasing after material things and whatnot, we would never focus our attention on who we really are and the fact that we actually hold the keys.
Truth and falsehood within that. The European nations collectively is not responsible for that, because we'll be singling out a whole plethora of people by saying that they are trying to do something in unison. They are not in unison themselves. So the answer is no, that we cannot say that any nations are doing this. It's a certain group of people that's responsible for doing bad things and manipulating the world.
That's right.
And understanding certain things and capitalizes off it. Just like saying slavery. Not all Europeans was responsible for slavery.
No.
You know, so we never want to single out a large group of people and say that they're responsible. But within a small circle of them, they do this through organized groups and organizations and things of that nature. That is their intentions and their mission. Now, I would say this is a divine and spiritual movement. And the way life works, that even people who manipulate and have tried to preserve things for themselves and think that they can control stuff is really still a minute understanding. Because being that this is a divine movement, everything is going to come to surface. It's going to come to light. And knowing this, like Drew Ali said, that the keys of civilization are in our hands. From a spiritual and a divine perspective, we were what we call the original man, right? Other people will call it the first seeds. We were the first seeds of planet Earth, right? I'm talking about Asiatic melanin beings. So when we deal with the fall of man, we're the ones or the first ones that was responsible for sin and disobedience.
Absolutely.
Regardless of other people who might have came later or capitalized off of it, it's not up to them to reverse it. It's up to us to reverse it. So the focus point is not necessarily any group of nations or any Europeans, as if how people betray it. You know, Drew Ali teaches us to go within. That's what this whole movement is based off. It teaches man how to go within and how to find his own devil. Once we really understand this, although people might capitalize off certain things, the mission is for us to go within and start from a personal perspective to change or correct whatever is going on. Yes, sir.
Just one quick question. As far as when you say we the original man, would we consider us as we hear man and then mankind? How does that relate? Because in my mindset, of course, us being the original, I'm thinking we are man and everything else, not everything else, but every other race of people is mankind or a kind of man. Does that relate?
I don't really subscribe to that.
Yeah.
It's just semantics when they say mankind. You know, there's no different type of man. You know, that's me. It's my opinion. Different people interpret it different. But far as us being original man, the first seed was a melanated being. We was the first Adam. And when we talk about, again, Adam and Eve, I'm not coming from the biblical story as much. That's a code. Adam and Eve is coded.
Right.
All right. So we were the first Adam. There were 4 different Adams, according to higher schools of thought. So each Adam represented a different fall. So when I say we was the first Adam, I mean we was the first seeds. We was the first Adam, the melanated Adam, the original man to hit the garden, the first man. It's the first Adam. So I just want to go into the questionnaires a little bit and just spark the meeting up. And I'm going to go into question number 28, because we're talking about this whole Jesus demonstration. It says, why did Allah send Jesus to the earth? And I want to explain that. Allah sent Jesus to the earth. Question before that says, who is Jesus? No, according to the questionnaire. He was an angel of Allah. Right? He did what? All right. Sheik, is you going to say something different? All right, Islam. So he's an angel of Allah. Right? Just understand the concept. He's an angel of Allah. 28 says, why did Allah send Jesus? So just deal with the story. Just got to hear with patience. Allah sent Jesus to the earth, right? To save the Israelites from the iron hand oppression. The iron hand oppression is pretty much slavery. From the iron hand oppression, to oppress somebody is to enslave them. That's what oppression represents. So Allah sent Jesus to the earth to save the Israelites. Israelites. People of Israel. Right? Save the Israelites from the iron hand oppression of the pale-skinned nations of Europe. Listen very closely. Who were governing a portion. Portion just means a subdivision of. Who were governing a portion of Palestine at that time. Means that that's a different geographical area now. So they were called Israelites, which means people of Israel, but they were in a portion of Palestine at that time. So when you understand the geography behind that and where was Palestine, where was Israel, then you'll notice that it's different from where they say it is today. That's first red flag. We spoke about this earlier about Hebrew Israelites and different things like that. But understanding that this is the science of the Hebrew Israelites now, because when you go into Palestine, you'll notice that they were Canaanites, because Palestine was Canaan. So the Canaanites was also the Moabites.
That's right.
The Moabites is the same people as the Hebrew Israelites.
That's right.
Jesus, according to the scriptures, was a Jew. He was Jewish. So that means that the people of Palestine and Canaan were Jewish.
That's right.
So the people of Asia was Jewish. So the birthplace of man were people of Jewish descent. However, the Jewish people of that day are different, look different from the people who refer to themselves as Jews today. And the people of Israel on what they look like today is different from the Israel of the olden days. So Allah sent sent Jesus to save the Israelites from the iron hair oppression of the pale skinned nations of Europe, who were governing a portion of Palestine at that time. So just understand the story. Jesus, at this time we talking, was in the East. According, how long has that been? About 2,000 years ago. So you go back into that time frame, that was the East. Jesus, according to the scripture, was sent to the East, geographically speaking. So according to modern day people who saying just talking about Jesus over here in the West have no understanding on where Jesus even went and why. Who was he a prophet? Every nation was sent a prophet. So understanding Jesus' nationality according to the scriptures and where did he go and who was he for? Why are people over here in the West talking about Jesus when they have no understanding on where he even went? He didn't go to them. He didn't go to the West because there was no West. But people that's in the West don't really understand that. That's why they buy the story about him being a pale image, because they have no recollection of what he is or where he was at. And what does the people supposed to look like?
It's easy to say.
Yeah, but it's not even pertaining to them. Jesus is more popular here than, say, Buddha. But they know where Buddha came from. They know what Buddha, they even they graph Buddha to image the people there. But Jesus, they didn't do that. So the prophet, if a prophet is sent to that nation, he's supposed to look like the people of that nation. So he wasn't sent to the Europeans. You understand what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So he shouldn't have no business looking like them. He wasn't sent for them. The ones that he went to save is the ones that he's supposed to look like. And those were the so-called slaves. And in that day of time in the lessons, it speaks about the Gentiles. That's another story. So question number 30 says, what's the nationality of Ruth? So Ruth was a Moabitess. Why was her nationality Moabitess? Islam, he said he beat you to the punch. Although he didn't raise his hand. Robert's Rules of Order. Islam. So a person's nationality means what nation are they from? Or where they live. Same thing. Domicile. So Ruth was from the land of Moab. So the people that lived in the land of Moab, nationality was Moabite. That's why we say that we're descendants of the Moabites. Because we came down from those same line of people. That's where the name Moroccan even is derived from. We were Moabites before we were Moroccans. Same people, but meaning language terminology speaking. So when you go into the story of the Bible, into that 2,000 year time frame that they talk about, they're not going to use the word Moor or Moorish or Moroccan in the Bible because the reference of time we were known by Moabites. It says, what is the modern name for the Moabites? Moroccans. Where is the Moroccan Empire? Northwest of Mexico. Now, let's go back to back then. Don't try to look at Northwest of Mexico now. We know where that's at. But Northwest of Mexico at that time was where? Where in Africa?
Mecca.
No.
No.
Look, just picture the east, right? We got a map up here. And even this is a corrupted map if we're trying to go back 2,000 years ago. But everything on the east of the Atlantic, all right? None of this was there. All of that was one land.
That's right.
Yes.
Right? Now, if it was put the picture together, just erase what's on the left. Just deal with the east. According to your coordinates, where would northwest of Mexico be? Because a Mexico is Africa. Where would northwest of Mexico be according to that map? Brother Omari has a demonstration on that.
Arise, give all praises to Father God Allah, give honors to his prophet Noble Ali, give honors to all Muslims in attendance and online. Islam? In my opinion, that would be Asia.
Well, no, because the whole continent was Asia.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So northwest, where's the northwest corner at? There were coordinates.
Oh, yes.
There were coordinates. Remember, northwest is a higher fraternal coordinate. And what I mean by that is the term northwest means a whole lot in different schools of thought, especially politically speaking. Why? Because of what we're talking about right now. What is northwest really symbolic of? The northwest corner. You hear that term on a lower level in the street, it means nothing because we wasn't never taught none of that. But the higher you go in knowledge and realm and schools of thought, northwest starts to mean something the higher you go. Yes, sir.
It's and this is out of my own head now, but is it representation of the ruling part of the world? The ruling authorities?
It was for a very, very, very long time. This is why the world paid tribute or tax to the Emperor of Morocco. Because he had the head port in Morocco. Morocco is the northwest corner of a Mexico. We say here now because of the split, but it's still there. I'm saying erase modern day. Let's go back to then, the 2,000 years ago story, where would northwest of Mexico be at? The direction that is given us, the point of reference that is given us is there's other information that goes into here. To really understand here, we got to get into longitude and latitude, which we're not dealing with that right now. We're just dealing with back then, 2,000 years ago, where was the northwest corner? And it's Morocco, Mauritania, that area. That's where the Moroccan Empire, the seat of the Moroccan Empire. The seat of the Moroccan Empire. The Emperor of Morocco controlled the whole Barbary coast. This is why it's called empire. An empire is plural. Singular is called emperor. If it's a male. If it's a woman, it's called empress. So if you have an emperor, that means that he's control of an empire. So the emperor of Morocco at that time controlled the whole of Mexico. This is where Moors have a hard time understanding, when you try to tell them about their Moroccan descent, and where they might say, well, what if my parents or greats came out of Nigeria? What if we was from the other side of a Mexico? And people don't understand that they're still Moroccan regardless of where at in so-called Africa that their folks came from, which they'll never know anyway, because you can't even trace your family back to that. And Ancestry.com is not going to do that.
No.
So people got to realize they're trying to look for ways to go around stuff to try to see what country in Africa they want to link themselves to. Those countries wasn't even relevant 2,000 years ago. Those countries wasn't even in existence. So you really got to think of what empire you going back to. And Moroccan Empire was really the controlling and the most majority empire of a Mexim or Kibalan, whatever you want to call it. So you Moorish by descent regardless of where your greats actually came from. And every other, like back to what you were saying, whatever type of man, and I know what you mean by that, came later, they're still Moorish descent. That's on another note. So the Europeans are Moors too. Their descendants are Moors. It says, why are we Moorish American? Back to these one-on-ones. Because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. Well, you want to get technical, they're descendants of Moroccans as well. They were born in Europe.
That's right. Queen Europa.
Or they were born somewhere else. Or wherever they were born at, they're still descendants. So everybody is always a descendant of something or somebody. So when we really understand true knowledge, we can't really kick dirt or depreciate different people. That's not what we're here for. So
I just want to add real quick,
Mm-hmm.
which what you just said kind of stems back into the mankind thing, as far as it related to the descendants of. I think we tend to hear that and more so in a, not necessarily a street term, but a way of thinking as far as
Sure.
man. I don't mean to hype on that.
Yeah.
Your explanation just kind of tied that together to me. I mean, it makes sense easily, but
Mhm.
when you think about it in a sense of that, we are all definitely related because we come from one people.
True.
The original people that were here, so it still kind of conjures up the understanding of man and mankind.
True.
They're kind of separated, but it's still connected.
Yes. Now, we got to listen closely to Drew Ali's teachings because he puts emphasis on certain words and he chooses his words strategically. Well, there's two classifications of Europeans according to his teachings. You have the European nations, and then you have the pale-skinned nations of Europe. So those are two different, I don't want to say different people, but they look different, different breed. So we got to be careful when we just throw the word out there, European, and start charging people and saying, well, the European did this. No, you got to be careful when you say that because that's not true. And let me ask you a question. If they have real light hue people in Egypt,
Yeah.
Are they European? No. What is their nationality? No. Egyptians. So when you get over there and you start to adopt your westernized thought and repeat it over there, then they outcast you right away because that language is not even known there. You can't go out there talking white or black or talking European and talking this. That doesn't exist. When you say Europe or European to them, they think you from Europe. Europe is not Egypt. So you don't, regardless of how a person looks in Egypt, you can't call them European or white. They got the same classification as the darkest person there. It doesn't change. And the status doesn't change. That was one of El Haj Malik's teachings when he got back.
That's right.
Exactly what he said.
He said they had Muslims over there that with blonde hair and blue eyes. He said that's what changed his whole thought pattern, how he felt about the so-called white.
Yes, sir.
If I may add on the mankind thing, I did my research with that years ago, but mankind was man, man, woman. I'm the kind of man because I come from another son of man, mankind. So as I started reading the prophet's works, I started putting it together why he interchanges it like that. It's up to you to figure it out. I'm not going to tell you what that is. So it's not mankind, any particular person, because they're mankind as well. They come from out of the womb of their mother. Womb man, son of man.
That's right.
Mankind, male of the species. You can't be man. That's impossible. I'm talking about. So I mean, from a scientific, it's not possible for us to be man. So I mean, like I'm the man. You can't be.
Islam.
Nah, I just want that.
Islam. Islam. So we're still in the questionnaires. That's why we gotta the 101s. We definitely have to dissect because it's a lot of fundamental information in here that needs to be dissected. We can't just read it and leave it alone because it really wouldn't make sense.
Right.
And really, we look at it just as another form of indoctrination if we don't really study it to figure out what is being said. And this is what most people do. They look at it and then put it back away because it's not making sense and it's not. They don't really think it's along the lines of where they're going. So they don't understand it. They put it away. And it's the foundation to more science. So what occurs is if you put this down and then 15, 20 years later, you still haven't dissected it. Now you 15, 20 years into this and still don't understand the foundation. So now you're questioned on it or you have to give a presentation on it and you can't explain it. That's not good. And that's where a lot of people fall short at. Even on like a lot of the YouTube mods still today, you don't see they touch up on this stuff because a lot of them are not qualified to. Just keeping it real. Because they were one of the ones that put it away because they thought that it was putting them into another oppression. So they felt like something else was deeper and they stayed with that. So it says, question number 32, where's the Moroccan Empire, northwest of Mexico? We just covered that. And again, start getting into your compass. Remember, Moors are mariners, navigators, right? So it's at one time in our history, in our life, where northwest meant a lot just because we were traveling in that direction. Southwest, southeast, that's how we traveled. And we used a compass to navigate wherever we needed to go. So this was basic elementary kindergarten information that we learned as children in other time zones. So this is where the compass and the square, we see a compass and a square nowadays. First thing we say, oh, that's Mason. Oh, he's a Mason. But that shows you how far we dumbed down. To the point that we'll give an organization a name for a navigational tool. A compass and a square represents a navigational tool. That's no different if we pulled out a hammer and we say, oh, and we gave that person a name because he uses a hammer. Oh, he's a carpenter. You know, like that's just how lower minds think. If we don't use it, we don't have no relationship to it, no association with it. So we pick a name that other people are more known to use it for. And then we start to cast and throw stones at them because they use something that was organic to us in the beginning. So again, a compass is just a navigational tool, right? Then in cars and automobiles, they start to put what they call North Stars in them and on stars. Then you got the word star. Then you got the word north. What does all that mean? There's a reason why they chose names for these things. Then they got the satellite positions. Then they come to GPS. And now it's on our phone. So we got an unseen compass on our phone, and we don't even know that. We don't know it to be a compass. But that's how far we dumb down there. We're using a digital compass that other people streamlined and put it in all our devices.
That's right.
And we don't even know the source of it. And if we had to physically use a regular compass, the organic one, we won't even know how to use it. But it's all relative and based off the position of the stars. And that's how we just, I'm saying this to give our forefathers right now honor where honor is due, because just look how easy it is for us now. Look what they had to do to sail around the world by using a little tool called a compass. And we can't even get to parts of New Jersey and New York with that same compass. You know, that's sad. And we talking about thousands of years later, you know, and we supposed to be more advanced now, and we say we more advanced, and it's only because of the technology. But we're not advanced minus the technology. That's still enslavement.
I just wanted to say the accuracy of being able to use that is incredible.
Yes.
That comes from Mark was watching something. Remember that video he was watching when he said he was talking to the dude on the boat, and he said, "I don't know how you do this, but travel by the night, by the stars, like the Moors do." Oh, 1492. Was that it? Yeah.
Islam.
So accuracy is uncommon.
Yes.
Pyramids to be able to travel like that, as far as us just using the phone and punching it in.
Mm-hmm.
And my father was a truck driver, so he did maps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that type of he was a boatman too. So just to be able to use those tools are very uncommon today. But even in their time, to be so accurate, other people even looked at them as incredible people because they were pretty much the only ones to know how to use it.
Yeah.
But to use it so accurately.
Mm-hmm.
It was incredible.
Islam, and what are they doing? They're studying the science of the Moors.
That's right. Yeah.
So what are the Moors studying?
Jay-Z, Beyonce, all the other garbage.
But it just puts us on point on the real deal. Like none of us know nothing really. Nobody in this room really know what we need to know. But we just putting a point of reference there to just humble us, regardless of where we at in our studies. We all should be humble right now and realize what we don't know.
That's right.
Exactly.
And how much more wisdom needs to be learned. And again, with this technology and like you said, coming from those days and times, I'm a truck driver too. And I've been taught how to read a map and do it. I still do that. And I don't like GPS. But even coming out of my era into people nowadays, they never even touched the map. And they don't even sell maps in the stores too much anymore. So they're phasing them out where the younger generation is not even going to learn, and they'll look at you funny if you try to show them stuff like that, because they're going to say, why do you need to do that when you can just go on your phone and you don't even have to type it no more? You could text it, talk it, hit a button and talk it. Take me here, and you don't have to do anything. So again, trying to get somebody to learn something and read something, that's not just with the map. That's with a lot of things we do. That they streamline the whole process. And what I'm just trying to just express here, that it's just another form of slavery that we're not looking at. The fact that we allow the technology to dumb us down and to trap us like that, that's another form of slavery. Forget names of what you've been called and what Negro, Black, and colored. It's way past that now. Like, really, we should rip this information up because it's so low level. But we have to talk about it because you still got people who need to hear that, because that's where they're coming in at. But once you pass that, you understand there's much bigger stuff out here to deal with than that. That's a distraction. Negro, Black, and colored is a distraction. Nationality is a distraction. But we have to speed up, get past that, and start getting into what's really going on. How are we going to defend ourselves from nuclear warfare and whatever's going on out there if we're still trying to look in these dictionaries to find out, what's our true name? Are we Negroes? Are we Blacks? Are we colored? Are we Moors? And trying to study this information. Look how much time it takes to even do that we don't have time for. We were just talking about this earlier. We don't even have time to study anymore. So look at just studying stuff that we can defend ourselves is one thing. We don't have time for that. Now let's deal with the unseen forces that's against us, that you can't really study for like that. You just got to be in tune. You can't deal with that because you got to deal with the physical stuff first. You have to read. Reading enhances your spiritual defense system. That's why it was created in the first place. But if we don't read, we don't raise our vibration this way through signs and symbols, because letters is still signs and symbols. They're glyphs, same thing. But they were created to bring memory to aid, to bring us to a certain vortex so that we can remember from the time we remember not. Once we got on that level, then this becomes obsolete and man becomes his true self. We can't do that no more because the time to read, the information to read is just not there anymore. So we're learning what creates our program and programming is what we see and what we hear. So what we hear and see on a daily basis creates a program in us. And that's how we relate. That's how we gain experience, which is bad because what's creating the program was deliberately put there to entrap our mind. So this is why we got to go into this old stuff just to try to deprogram the program that's being put on us. Takes us back to even when we read this language and it start talking about have not, he, and all of this, the different terminology. That's old terminology that you don't hear anymore. That's actually good for our mental state because it's helping us go back to a time a time era that's different from this time. So it's kind of like breaking the spell. But if we only read new information and current information and put current data into us, that creates the program. Then we don't know anything else. It's hard for us to go back to anything because we got to go back through timeline. So what we're reading is we're reading different timelines. Like we talked about the Moors, the Moroccans, the Moabites, the Canaanites, the Hittites. Every time you mention a word, that's a different era of time. Now, when you read the stories and the characters of those times, of those timelines, it helps put you in a place, a mental state of what went on during that time. Just like I was just talking about the compass and the navigation. That's a time, there's a big gap of time that's missing out of our experience. So that's why we had to navigate without the GPS. We won't know how to, because that gap of time is missing from our experience. So we can't, you know how some things you don't know how to do, but you figure it out after a while, you keep messing with it. You know, it's like you have to remind yourself how to reuse stuff sometimes. But you got to keep messing with it until you start to remember how you did it before. And that's how we got to look at life, at advancing. Because we existed on every lifespan. We are everlasting, eternal beings. This is not our first life. So when we talking about all of these different Moorish characters from the olden times, we were them. There wasn't a separate group of people. You are who your forefathers were, or are without a doubt and contradiction. What does that mean? That means that you are them. They're nobody different. What you're reading in the scripture is you. That's not somebody else that existed then and you just coming upon the scene now. That's how people interpret it, and that's why they lost. You're reading your story. Yes, sir.
Does that mean, like, when you hear some people say some things are written in their DNA or already within you?
Yes.
Just take certain things to pull them out.
Correct. Absolutely. And this is why in Moore Science Temple we say masterminds traces themselves backwards through the ages, and thus they know. We have to become masterminds because mind doesn't forget. Just understand that science. Man is mind, not physical man, no. Because man is not the body nor the soul. Man is not so man is mind. Mind is not a physical constitution. Mind is mental. It's airborne. And all knowledge is written in the ether plane, or the etheric plane, which is in the air, plane of atmosphere. So information is airborne. We're reading it in the book, but it's just an interpretation of what we can't see. So a mastermind has to remember everything from, again, the matrix. It's all digital. So all that information, they put it in numbers, and it keeps going backwards and backwards, and they keep going back. That's memory. But we're not able in our present state to remember all of that, comprehend it. So it takes a mastermind to really tap back into that and go back into his memory bank. We also have a term for that called the Akashic records. You know, so it's all synonymous. Islam, sister, I know you had your hand up for a while.
I was going back in my memory when you were talking about going back in memory. I spent a little bit of time in the military, but I was in combat telecommunications.
All right.
Field, whereas we had to navigate with the compass in the field itself, as well as with the map, as well as with
Great.
So I'm just bringing that up because I've been doing a lot of traveling from I think in the last 2 months I've been from Detroit
Mhm.
to Rhode Island,
Mhm.
to Jersey, to Philadelphia,
Mhm.
to upstate, far up New York.
Mhm.
The point is that even before then, I've been traveling. I've
Mhm.
been doing medical travel like for 20 years.
Mhm.
But I've been, kind of reliant on the GPS thing,
Mhm.
phone, Bugsby or Waze.
Mhm.
And there's been a couple of times on the road that, and I travel at night,
Mhm.
and I travel all the time. But if I'm not aware, because my GPS will go out, the satellite will not be working.
Mhm.
I started carrying a portable hotspot, hoping to get towers. But I knew that, I'm really done if I can't read a map. So on a regular, I keep maps in the car on a regular.
Mhm.
And I've got either, like, I think this map here is like just to the West Coast. But at home, I've got a box and it's got maps of all sorts. And so it's right. I go back in my emotions when I'm driving sometimes,
Mhm.
because when the GPS goes out, I'll get, I won't say a panic attack, but I'll get that little like, where am I going? Where am I
Yeah,
going?
you feel lost. Yeah.
And because I'm so dependent on that,
Yes.
then I'm not too dependent. I was gonna say also, I was riding with one of the Moors to DC a couple of months back,
Mhm.
and the GPS went out. So that person was sitting shotgun to me, which basically means you in front. You're
Mhm.
not supposed to just be eating and sleeping
Mhm.
and blowing wind. You know what I mean? You're
Mhm.
supposed to be helping me if I can't see.
Yes.
And that's what actually happened. With, the GPS went out, and I told the brother to break open the door box and get the map, and he just like freaked out because he's like, I heard this thing. We're just trying to say, okay, pay attention to the signs. I mean, it's been years,
Yeah.
but in 8 years and some other years in the military, you don't forget certain indoctrination.
Yeah.
If you're lost, you better figure it out. You better find the moon. You better find the sun. Where is it? Rise in the east, sets in the west. Is it at 12 o'clock? Where is it? So you just know these things,
Mhm.
have to be part of your survival. So I just want to throw that
Yes,
out
I
there.
like that term, survival.
Yeah.
Definitely. Strong.
But yeah, he couldn't handle the physical
Yeah.
map and the
Mhm.
reading, and he couldn't get that.
The-
The rivers.
Was it a young brother or older brother?
I guess 50s. We're young.
Well, that era still should know the map a little bit.
And I'm from the country too, so therefore I'm more accustomed to
Mhm.
people in the city. They just get on, the mass transit and
Mhm.
they're there.
Mhm.
You still not.
Oh yeah.
No, they got underground maps too. They got underground maps, subway maps. I know people who are swift with the underground map too. Tell you all about that subway system.
Yeah, right.
Islam. So Earth has 4 corners as well. So this is just general knowledge that we should know. So we're talking about the 4 corners. And the corners are your cardinal points. And this is symbolized again. Where we at? This glyph here, what we call the circle 7, that represents the 4 corners. So even though, again, according to one's interpretation or school of thought, they look at this glyph and somebody might say that's religious. Somebody look at that and say that's 5%. Somebody else might say, oh, that's more Science Temple stuff. Somebody else might say that's Masonry stuff. According to what their experience is, that's what they start calling it a name. But you minus the institution that might use this, you're dealing with the world science here. You're dealing with perfected man. This is universal science, regardless of what is being talked about in here. But just for starters, This is it means so many things on so many different levels that one shouldn't just run from it. They should understand it. So Sheikah's Nika gave out a sheet. Did everybody get one of these? So
We had the same definition last week.
you should have read it several years ago. We've been going at it for years. You don't remember that term?
Yes, I know. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But like you said, after a while, if you don't continue to exercise it, it kind of gets pushed in the back of the mind. So I know it never got lost. It was just very good. We never spoke about it since then.
Islam.
I'm not making up no excuses. I should have still been sharp with it, but however.
Islam. All right. So the term here we have is psychopathic, constitutional, inferiority. And let me hold this up for the online viewers. Now, this is an interesting term here. And several years ago, we came upon this term, and we did a lecture on it once. But this really reflects the mind state of our people. And we're going to read the definition. It's individuals who show a lifelong and constitutional tendency not to conform to the customs of the group, and who habitually misbehave and have no sense of responsibility to their fellow men or to society as a whole. These individuals fail to learn by experience and are inadequate, incapable, and inefficient. So I want to relate this to the time of slavery. We just spoke about the industrious acts of the Moors and the Muslims and of our forefathers. So we know that the world's debt is great to the Moors. So this definition is not speaking about the Moors of those ages, but it is making reference to the Moors of the modern day age. And what made the change in this was the time of slavery. So during the time of slavery, we were programmed to fit this description, to fit this definition, to fit this phraseology. This was bred in us. This went through, like the brother just said, this went through the DNA. To now we got the brothers and the sisters hanging out in a corner, regardless, even if they're working or whatever they're doing, they just don't want to do nothing else. It's because of what this program did to them during the time of slavery. Now, there's different phases of this, and I'm going to explain. Not that we're immune from this definition because we're sitting in here with turbans and feathers on. Because some of us also fit this description. So I'm going to repeat it again. It's psychopathic, constitutional, inferior. That means they're inferior to the Constitution. Now, the word Constitution just means together with. The word Constitution, from a legal perspective, or political perspective just means together with. Just like Act 6 says, with us, all members. That creates a constitution. That's why Act 6 is the highlight of the Constitution. It creates the Constitution. It's the foundation of Moorish American. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality. That's the foundation of it. That's the foundation of the nation. It's the foundation of you being a part of any nation. So if someone has the status of a stateless person, which means that they do not proclaim or declare a nationality, they're referred to as a stateless person. That stateless person is also referred to as psychopathic, constitutional inferior. That means they're inferior to a nation. That means they're inadequate to a nation, incompatible with a nation. This is why Drew Ali said, come link yourself with the family of nations. You have to become a part of a nation to have constitutional protection, representation, and a defense, or what we call constitutional recourse. You know how, it's all on YouTube every time, you want to hold people to the Constitution and say they took an oath to uphold the Constitution. They did this, they did that, and they supposed to honor the Constitution. The Constitution says this, Constitution says that. All that's true. But the reason why they don't hear what we're saying is because they're viewing us as constitutional inferior. Drew Ali words, going back to another passage. Help me save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of government. If we've fallen from the Constitution, help me get them back into the constitutional fold again. This is his words. So I want to dissect what he just said. Back into the constitutional fold again. Again means re. Re means before. So what he's saying that these group of people was once in the constitutional fold, but now they're not. So he was asking the Europeans and other nations to help get us back into the Constitution again. That was the plea to the nation. So Drew Ali had to plea to other folks to help him get us back into the constitutional fold again. Meaning help him proclaim our nationality. So this is why I was saying earlier that we can't fault all people alike, because he said Europeans and other nations are helping me. Why not you?
Exactly.
So some of them are still to this day doing more for the redemption of our people than our own.
That's right.
So we can't throw anything at them. Not all of them, but some of them are. So you can't blame a whole group of people.
For one or two people's actions.
So individuals who show a lifelong, large amount of time, their whole life, their half a life, constitutional tendency not to conform to the customs of the group. Now, what is the group? We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union.
To ordain and establish this Constitution.
So we the people is synonymous with Act 6 of the Divine Constitution.
That's right.
We the people is known as what? Body of law. What we call that? No. What is that?
Executive.
What you say, Shikas? Yeah, what is the name of what I just recited? No. No. What is the name of that paragraph? Preamble.
Yeah,
Right.
I was waiting to hear.
So just understand what does pre mean. Pre is the root.
Pre is the root.
Pre means before.
Before. That's
All right. So pre means before. So before the Constitution was formed,
It was even formed.
the
Right.
people had to come together and agree to it.
That's right.
That's the foundation of what you know to this day as the United States of America. That construction of the United States of America and the United States of America's present Constitution was formed by we the people. We the collective people of the United States. The United States. So we the people came together, and they said it, in order to form a more perfect union. So they said they were perfecting it, which means that it was already in operation.
That's right.
That's another code.
And ordained.
Right?
That's right.
So that brings you back into Article 6 of the United States of America's Constitution, where it says all contracts, engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall remain valid against the United States as under the Confederation.
That's right.
Is the law of the land. Yes.
They can't give.
So what that means, just paraphrasing real quick, what that means that there was already laws and governing bodies in formation prior to the Constitution as you know it.
That's right. That's right.
Which also means that what makes laws is customs. Customs make law. It's called customary law, otherwise known as common law. This is why you have to know common law, because common law predates statutory law. Common law was in place before statutory law or United States of America was even formed. And Article 6 is what they admitted it. And they said whatever your custom was is still your law. That's how you intertwine your Moorish custom with the United States of America's custom. Absolutely. But what occurs is you have to implement or reestablish your forefathers' customs, because the customs is what makes the law. Us wearing our fez is a customary law. It's a customary attire, customary tradition. Just using different terminology to explain it. Some in modern day might say, well, this is my religious headdress. You can say that too if you want. But more organically speaking, it's customary. It's a custom. You carrying the names of your forefathers, as far as El and Bay, are customary. Whatever we do in the Moorish Science Temple of America is customary. That makes it a law. If you read any of the resolutions that they passed from the House Joint Resolutions, House of Representatives, that is, the resolutions are giving acknowledgement to your custom. They don't really talk about your laws. They won't say that. But they do acknowledge your custom. We have to know custom is law and custom is old law.
That's right. Old time religion.
Yes, Sheikah Sneaker.
Preamble, you said pre means before.
Yes.
So when you define the term amble,
Mm-hmm.
A-M-B-L-E, it means to go back, to walk, or to go towards or act slowly.
All right.
So the definition for preamble itself is a preliminary or preparatory statement.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense because it even saying through the preamble that they're doing something in order for something else.
In order to go forward.
Right, move forward.
This has to be declared or stated before we move forward.
Amble needs to go forward.
Mhm. Yes,
Islam.
it's Islam. And that's why I related it to Act 6.
Right.
Because before we can go forward with Moorish information or Moorish custom, we first have to proclaim our nationality. Islam.
Would amble also mean like time? Because you know how you say they say you have to amble up.
That's
Is it
that's
amble?
full. That's P.
Oh,
That's
amble.
full, yeah.
Oh,
Amble is with a P.
Islam. So again, now I'm gonna reread it, knowing what custom, explaining custom a little bit. Individuals who show a lifelong and constitutional tendency not to conform to the customs of the group.
Wow.
So now I want to explain this. Thank you. Negro, black, colored, Ethiopian. Far as terminology and classification speaking, are slaves
That's right.
legally.
It's not.
And slaves have no custom.
No.
Slaves are barred from following custom. When we were enslaved as a people, we were stripped of our customs, as far as our names, our religious practices, if you will, our language, our dress attire, and everything else. This is where Christianity was forced upon us and everything else. Even our dietary laws changed when we was enslaved.
That's right.
We was talking about the East and the West earlier. You ever heard of the term westernized diet?
yes.
So a lot of the food that we eat here is a westernized diet. That's not even right and exact. But in other schools of thought, you will learn that some of the foods we eat are also referred to as slave foods. A lot of food that was introduced to us was slave food. They were only given to slaves. No different. You go to jail or prison, and there's certain types of food, certain grades of food that they give the prisoners. Same thing. I talked about this last week, that when we were captured, because we're talking about prisoners of war. Remember the lesson? Slaves were POWs, prisoners of war. So it's no different from you going to jail right now and being classified or labeled a prisoner. That's a slave. No different from back when we were captured during war, we were referred to as a prisoner of war. It was later termed slave. So the prisoner is the same thing. So they have same, they gave us certain diet when they captured us and fed us. Same thing as when we go to prison.
Wow.
So as Moors, once we proclaim our nationality, it says, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed. That's where I want to focus on the next few minutes. You have to be taught about your nationality and your creed so that you can conform to the customs of the group. The members of the temple and of the movement and of the nation have a custom. So you're learning customary laws. When you read the Constitution and bylaws, you got the additional laws, and you have whatever other literature that's involved that you get in the Moorish Science Temple creates your customary laws. The Prophet joined that with the United States of America's Constitution. So the United States of America Constitution also becomes your modern day custom. So that modern day custom and your forefathers' customs become one. That's where you get the term Moorish American from. So you have Moorish customs, and now you have modern day what we call American customs. So our nationality becomes known as Moorish American. That means there's two, not just flags, but you have two different customs now to be conjoined to one. When you read the Historical Leader's Message to America by Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he goes into that. How certain things of America has been adopted, certain customs has been adopted into this American life. Meaning your forefathers' customs. And that's important because soon as we want to proclaim, we want to kind of fit the custom. We want to try to conform to the customs of the group. For this definition, I'm just going to replace the word group with nation. So for us, we don't really call us a group, but we're a nation.
That's right.
So we want to conform to the customs of the nation. That's where we start changing things now. The way we dress, the way we speak, the language that we use, how we treat other people, how we treat ourselves, what we eat. All that's a part of our custom. So this here is describing people who do not want to conform to the custom. Now this becomes a problem. Like Drew Ali said, if you can't convince your brother that they're not Negro, black, and colored, he said there's nothing else to say to them. Right?
Exactly.
But now I'm addressing brothers and sisters who proclaim, but still don't want to conform to the custom of the group. Now you got a problem. Now you have a serious problem. Especially with this technology these days, because we have Moors all on the internet, YouTube, and all over the place. Mm-hmm. And everybody don't subscribe to the same custom. That creates a problem. Doesn't mean that you can't study something different or you can't branch off into something else. That's not what I'm addressing. But the organic customs that we're clear upon, that Drew Ali taught us and instructed us to do, because some things was put in the form of a law just to get us to comply with it. Once you comply to this and feel that you're a part of this, then it's no longer law, it's just a custom. Like this, we spoke about this before, attending your meetings, being prompt, just doing certain things becomes a custom. It starts off as a law. You'll be fine on the first case. You'll be fine on the second case. All of those are just to get you on the right path so that you can start habitually doing stuff. But once you become a part of this and you become sincere, you don't need the law anymore. It just becomes part of your custom. It's like you're doing this because you're in it and this is what you do. You become, like they say, you become accustomed to it, right? So you have to become accustomed to more science. So then you just be yourself. You're not doing it because Drew Ali says so, the Grand Sheik says so, it's in the Moorish Guide, it's in the Constitution. If you're still the one that needs to be held to the law, then you fit the term of psychopathic constitutional inferior. Islam, more, you had your hand up. What you going to demonstrate?
I was speaking about the first I rise, giving praises to the most highest of the highest, most divine and the source of life, who we refer to as Allah. Honest to his noble prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Honest to the Grand Sheik. Honest to the Sheikhs. Honest to the Sheiks. Honest to all members in attendance. Honest to everything pertaining to Islam. The ladder that leads to salvation has 3 steps. So first is belief, then is faith, then is fruition. Mm-hmm. And we know that belief is what man perhaps think is true, and belief is lost in faith, and that is which man know is true. Mm-hmm. And
faith is also lost in fruition. That man become that which he knows.
That's right.
True.
And this is the custom that we speak of, and this is our way of life, which is called Islamism.
Islam, I see you've been in your books, brother.
Islam. So it says, who habitually misbehave and have no sense of responsibility to their fellow men or to society as a whole.
Psychopathic, constitutional, inferior.
When I read that, I hear Drew Ali's statement when he says, I traveled in the South.
Yep, I see it.
I examine the conditions there. And it's the works of my people continuously practicing things to bring disgrace to anybody that lives the life. Paraphrasing. But that's what I hear, you know, when I read this, and he's right that after all of this time, we can't really hold slave holders to this anymore. We know what we're supposed to be doing. The literature's been out. Drew Ali said everybody's been told. There's no reason why we have to still go back and revisit this type of behavior. Now, we expect those who haven't proclaimed yet to do what they do. And like he says that you can't spend too much time with them on that topic.
No.
But with us, when we come here, we already on the level. We already claim, we already have the same literature. We already agreed, accepted this. We're supposed to be moving forward like the preamble stipulated. So what direction are we going in? We're trying to ascend. We're going upward to a state of perfection. So that means that we're not supposed to be going down along the way. You know, naught and ought, when they meet, what occurs? According to more science.
No, it goes down and
No, before it goes down, something occurs. It's in the literature. When ought and naught meet, the first thing that occurs is they begin to strive.
Islam.
Once they begin to strive, then naught goes down, and man as truth abides.
That's right.
So just put that into application of self. We got a lower self and a higher self. That's symbolic of the ought and the naught. Naught is your lower self, ought is your higher self. So when ought and naught meet, when your higher self and your lower self meet, that means when you become conscious of the two, what occurs is now you begin to strive. So before, when we was deaf, dumb, and blind, we wasn't striving. We didn't know nothing about this. We didn't know nothing about the higher self or none of that, right? So now we know, now we begin to strive. Now that we begin to strive, naught's supposed to be going down. Your sins are supposed to be minimizing at this point. The longer you stay in this, the more naught's supposed to be going down to eventually man as truth should be abiding. That's how this works, putting it in an application. So the definition is talking about people who are not striving. That has this habitually misbehaving and is not following the laws. And we just have to bring recognition to this so that we don't fit that criteria, that definition. That's not why we're here, and that's not what we're trying to teach other people to demonstrate.
Islam.
Islam?
Islam.
Any questions? Islam.
Just one last question. In
You're
reference
good.
To the lineage, as far as the Canaanites and so forth, of course, Moorish descent. Studying the history a little bit, of course, we know the Olmecs were here. They do fall under that umbrella of the different names at different times. As far as Canaanites, they came. I'm not sure.
Who are they?
The Olmecs.
Yeah.
Well, from what I understand, they did come from here, from Africa, and the reason all these pyramids are here on this land. but my understanding could be wrong. So I'm just wondering if they fall in. Of course, we have different names at different times. So I'm just wondering.
I'm
if they
glad
fall
you
in
cleared that
line
up.
As far as connected my history points,
Mhm.
as far as because I believe in history. Like you said.
I'm gonna just give you a clue to that. Remember, we scientists, and the way we decipher is through etymology. So the Olmecs are the Olmecs, or the Olmecs, or the Old Mexicans.
That's right.
All right. Who are they? We are the Olmecs.
That's right.
Remember, the old Mexicans, not the new Mexicans.
No, not them.
We are the old Mexicans.
You see it on the thing.
So just look at this again. Moors are Mexicans, but the old Mexicans, not Mexican. That wasn't the name, but Mexans or Mex. The MEX is derived from the word Mex, Mexum.
That's right.
A Mexum. A Mexum is old Mex.
Yeah. That's
So the
right.
old Mex or the old Mexicans. Just using the word Mexican now just to show you the understanding that Mexico is a Mexum.
That's right. Absolutely.
Can I ask something? Because if you look at all countries, they end most of them in AM. So that's all they did was American.
Yeah.
American is old Mex. American is Mexum. Old Mexum. It's all the same. It's just different timeline that the people they associate are different, and they give it deviations of different names. American is still Mexum.
So actually, I do understand that some of the things that I've read that the Indians that we consider Indians and the Mexicans that we consider Mexicans, being that you just made that clear to me, some would say they have European blood or not the real first Mexicans or Americans.
Which is true, because when this land was colonized, remember, we went to war again.
Right.
The only way you can colonize is by way of war. So whenever you're dealing with colonization, you're dealing with war. During the process of war, people were trapped, captured, enslaved, killed, raped. So a lot of the mixed breeding took place during the time of capture, which caused about the different deviations of skin, olive tone, and color, which created different people looking different now.
Right.
That's where your Indians came from.
Right.
That's why the picture of Indians look fair skinned. And then they say they are the original Aboriginal people of the land. No, they wasn't. They were a mixture of amalgamation that caused that type of appearance.
That's right.
But that's not an original, organic perception of people.
No. They weren't even called Indians.
No, Indian, the root of Indian is dark.
Right.
Indian means dark.
Dark.
So if an Indian is not dark, then they're not even supposed to be called Indian.
Let me ask you this: as far as that term Indian, well, from Christopher Columbus came here, he called the people here Indians, supposedly. But he actually thought he was in India.
No, he didn't think they was.
No.
He referred to them as Indian because they were dark, but they were in Haiti. They were dark people. So he did encounter Indians, but that wasn't their nationality, or that wasn't their proper name of their people. That was just a description. That's just like saying people were black.
Yeah, exactly.
Black is not a pronoun. It's an adjective. It describes what someone, and it don't even really describe what somebody look like, but it just describes. So Indian actually is no different from the word black when it comes to how they classify people. It doesn't represent a nation of people. It just describes what they look like. So Christopher Columbus was only saying that the people he encountered were dark people, which should give you the people a clue again that they were of dark hue, and they're not the people that they're saying was the Aboriginal people of the land.
Actual
Said it in
quote
the
was,
letter.
these are the same Blackamoor Indians that I encountered over in India.
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah.
Islam says.
Just from some other reference.
Hmm.
But there's actually not, there's a book that's called When Rocks Cry Out.
Mm-hmm.
By Bruce Butler, and he described around the 1100s or so when two Malian kings, Abu Bakr and I don't know.
Mansa Musa.
Yeah, they came in two different waves.
Mhm.
And they came like 1,200 ships in the very beginning
Mhm.
to that land. And the writings accordingly is that they asked, even then, they asked, it was in the 1100s,
Mhm.
that they asked, about the people that were on the land. And the people that were on the land stated that it was yet more people from antiquity before them, that they are the descendants of. This is in the 1100s.
Mhm.
It's true.
Islam.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they said that they were Meshes people. That was one of the terms that was used, that the people in the land were Meshes people. So I don't know if that was one of the old origins of Meshi.
Islam.
Meshes people.
Mm-hmm. Islam.
And that's a reference in
Messiah.
Islam. Thank you for that.
When rocks cry out.
When rocks cry out was a reference.
Rocks cry.
Islam. Was there any other questions before we close out? Islam, Brother Mark.
Could you clarify something for me? In some of the literature, it speaks about Inquisition and the Spanish Inquisition War.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now it's a brother across the street. He went to City College and everything. He went to history and he studied the Inquisition War, the Spanish Inquisition War, right? So we was having a little dialogue, and I'm cool with the dialogue, but sometimes I either I'm talking too fast or I'm thinking I can't respond. But can you? The Inquisition, I know the Inquisition is when they came over and raped us, and say like the Trail of Tears,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah. So now they put the spin on it and call it the Spanish Inquisition War because they didn't want to really, I guess, give it our ancestors their proper name at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So now,
well, let me just clear something. And when you go through these history books, a lot of times they won't consistently use the same name throughout each book because it's different authors, number one. And sometimes they do that to keep us distracted of who we really were. Like sometimes they will refer to it as like the Muslim conquerors or the Muslim warriors. Some they talk about the Berbers and the Spanish Inquisitioners. And what we got to realize that in some texts, in some schools of thought, the Moors were referred to as the Spaniards.
That's right.
All right. So, or they might refer to us as the Spanish Muslims, Spanish Muslims. And you got to realize that we are still talking about the same people because the Moors were native to Spain, even after they called it Spain. So when they use the word Spanish, it's a corrupted term because Spanish is a language pertaining to the people of Spain. A Spaniard is another corrupted term, but it pertains to the people of Spain. But now you have different people that was in Spain at different times. The Moors are native to Spain, organically speaking. When Spain was colonized, remember the last stronghold of the Moors was in 1492. So prior to that, it was Moors ruled. After that, it was mixedly ruled. But so when you say Spaniard or Spain, what reference to time you got to be more specific, not you personally, but when books and different people start just using the term Spain, according to the reference of time determines what group of people you're talking about, because it will vary in different time periods. But usually in those old books that you're talking about, when they talk about the Spaniards, they talk about us. Because we're even today, even locally in this portion of America, when you say Moor to a European, first thing that they think is Spain.
Spain.
They think Spain before they think Africa or America. Because it's because of the books that was put out there. It's a programming again. That's what they wanted. They told the story that they wanted us to run with. And when we adopt their story, then we're distracted. That's why they did that.
Had an out-of-town guest come in last week. Partly, but we had an out-of-town guest coming in from.
Excuse me 1 second. I don't want to cut you, but just to finish my thought, the Spanish language is Moorish language. Just so you know that most of your words you speak right now are actually rooted in Latin. It's properly Latin, and what we call Moorish Latin. But when we throw the word Spanish out there, we're really thinking Latino or Mexican, as if that's their language. And we need to understand that Spanish was our language before this dialect that we speak now. So that's why Drew Ali said that we need to learn Spanish again, because the proper pronunciations of words are rooted in Spanish. Or Latin, absolutely. I'm just throwing that out there because we think, as soon as we hear that term, we think other people. And what we do is we lose interpretation when we do that. Just like Jesus. Jesus is a Latin term. But nobody will associate Jesus with Latin because it's not proper to do so. But we can't say Jesus and interpret Jesus without going into Latin. When you go into Latin, Jesus is just. J-U-S. So when Drew Ali told you that Jesus means justice, he wasn't lying. Go into the root of the word and go into the proper language and you'll see that. And when you go into Latin, they define it as right. Just means right. It's long. Last part and stuff. Brother Mark was in it. Has to finish his thought.
No, well, that's fine. What I was gonna say, when she came to the house, she stayed for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we were speaking in regards to, because she asked the young noble what's his name. He said, I don't have a name, I have an appellation.
Mm-hmm.
So it sparked a conversation, and we just, enlightened her to that we were Moors. And so she was like, what do you mean Moors? Because when I hear Moors, I'm thinking about the Turks or Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Spain. So that was the first thing that came out of her.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
and we are the Turks as well. So she's still right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as you were saying, initially, or when you speak to folks, that's the first comment or thought.
What they think. They're coming from books.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why we have to know the books that's out there so that we can correct those books when we speaking to people who are or programmed by them books. You can tell them. Deprogram them. Thank you. You can deprogram them. But we got to know what they've been told first. You got to know their language in Islam. Islam.
My
You got the
short
last
question
word,
is-
brother.
Yes, my short question is, when we spoke earlier about the Indians being raped and their DNA,
The Moors were raped.
the Moors was raped. We said something regarding the Indians being raped during a war. I think we said something like that.
Well, no, what I was correcting was the concept of how the classification of Indian came about.
Right.
Who are they? And they're a result of rape
Exactly. So what
and
I wanted to know-
amalgamation.
Okay, what I wanted to know was what war was that?
Which war?
Yeah. That's my question. 'Cause
Which wars? It took place over many different
Yeah.
wars. But we're talking about what they refer to as the British War,
Okay.
of when specifically the British, which that goes into another lesson, because even within that we were the British.
Okay.
However, you did have British armies that wasn't us that also was involved in that war. So it gets tangled.
Okay.
But just so you know that particular war, where how we were colonized by what we call England, the British, the English settlers, they call them in history,
Mm-hmm.
the king and his army, whatever they've been told. This is why we speak what they call English now, because we were conquered by the English. All right, so that's that 1700s war that I'm speaking about. How they colonized our land and took over the land and renamed it to whatever they wanted it to be.
Okay.
The English settlers, the British, that's that time reference of those Indians. They called them Indians. That was their terminology. We wasn't calling ourselves Indians.
Okay.
We were Moors. Then they gave the so-called Indians reservations and put them in the constitutions and said that they wasn't taxed.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted us to think that we were Indians. It's a form of denationalization.
Exactly.
So it worked, because you got people still today trying to link themselves to being Indian because they think they have immunization there.
Another form of slavery.
Exactly.
Islam.
Islam, Morse. Thank everybody for their attendance today. I will ask Brother Omari, can you come up and read that warning, or maybe just the additional laws, and go over the collections? Yeah. Oh, you did that already. Where was that?
You was giving out that beautiful lesson, man. So much has happened.
Islam, fam.
Islam.
Additional laws for the Moorish Americans by the Prophet Noble Jew Ali. Act 1. Grand sheikhs and governors and heads of all temples, all businesses. Each said temple must be approved by the Prophet Noble Jew Ali before acting upon on any members. Let it be finance, property, or any line of life that will cause the members to sacrifice finance, etc., that will cause the support of any group of members. Any former officer that violates these laws is subject to be removed from his office under heavy restriction, etc., by the Prophet or the Grand Sheikh. Act 2. All members are to attend their added meetings and their public meetings promptly. If a member is found standing around on his meeting period, they shall be fined 50 cents on the first case, and on the second will be fined $1, which will go into your emergency fund. If member is working, his monthly dues must be paid. And if he has money in the bank, he must subscribe for as much as he is able to the Moorish Uplifting Fund, because it takes finance to uplift what? Act 3. It is the lawful and divine duty of every good member, if he or she is able in finance, to aid me in saving the nation, and if he does not, he is an enemy to the cause of uplifting his own people, and justice must catch him. Let it be he or she according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, as I have laid down the power invested in my hands, and I will have to enforce the law in order to save the nation. Act 4. All members, while up making a public speech, must not use any agitation against the American flag or speak radical against the church or any other member of any organized group, because we are to teach love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Act 5. All members must promptly attend their meetings and send their children to Sunday school. And if the teacher must conform himself to the questionnaire, and let every member exercise his or her 5 senses who is able to do so, because out from your Sunday school becomes what? Islam. Act 6. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Ali, through the guidance of his father, God Allah. Islam. I ask all Moors to rise. The closing prayer. Face the east. 5 feet up, 5 fingers on the left, 2 on the right. Repeat after Sheikh Sneaker. Islam. May Allah bind our hearts and minds back to our ancient forefathers, divine creative principles, and this we ask in thy holy name, in the 7 Elohims. Amen. Islam. Meeting is now officially closed, Moors.
Somebody else trying to make a speech.
Grand Chief, thank you. Great lesson.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely great lesson.
We'll get some more of this nourishment.
I try to raise my hands right, but break that third.
Great.
That was-